Okay, this is better now. So I'm sure you're probably receiving too many rather than too few emails. So we very much appreciate you taking the time of completing our little survey here. As you might have noticed, since we're just forming this group here, we're at this point still a bit smaller than the other communities. Of course, our ambition is to grow and to develop. But I think this also leaves all of us with the great opportunity to really contribute to this group here and to help it grow, but also to set the agenda going forward. And in order to kick off today's meeting, we thought it would be very valuable for all of us to hear a bit more about your current country experiences, but also to learn more about which topics you're interested in going forward. So we have developed this, thank you, this little survey that we shared with you. And once more, thank you very much for taking the time to fill it in. So the questions, as you know, 10 of them, we tried to keep it brief and didn't want to take away too much of your time, centered around 3 different topics. One was the country context and the status quo. Here's just a slide showing who participated. This is not intended to induce public shaming, but just to give you an idea of who is here and who participated. So the response rate, I think, was fairly high. So this is, I think, partly due to the very nice and engaged interactions by the Secretariat, but also by your responsiveness, which is great. So we had between, on average, 1 to 2 participants per country. And again, no need to look too closely at who did and who did not fill this in. So I'm going to jump right into the first question, where we just wanted to learn a little bit about, and also to reflect the diversity in the region. I think this is really important. So the region is quite diverse in terms of country size, but also in terms of economic characteristics. And we asked here about your estimates, but we assume that your estimates are going to be fairly correct, the tax-to-GDP ratios in your countries. And we see that there's quite a lot of heterogeneity across countries. So over 20%, you can see it down here in detail, 25% said it's below 10%. But on the other end of the spectrum, we also have quite a few responses from countries with tax-to-GDP ratios of over 20%. But I think what an assessment that I suppose many, if not all of you share, is that there's room for improvement in tax collection. And this is part of the reason why we're here, to learn from each other what does not work so well, but also to exchange ideas on what does work well and how can we do better, what can we learn from country best practices. So an important topic, and we've heard this in the plenary session as well, centers around artificial intelligence and digitalization. So we anticipated that this is something that you'll be fairly interested in, and this is the background of this first content-related question: on which functions do you think are most digitalized in your country? And quite fittingly, I find, also in relation to what we will be talking about, none of you mentioned that there's a lot of digitalization going on when it comes to audit selection and the analysis of, or the estimation of the revenue effects of audit. So we'll be discussing this in quite a lot of detail tomorrow and following up on this. On the other hand, I think which is quite encouraging and nice to see that in almost all countries there seem to have been a lot of progress when it comes to electronic filing and payment, which I think is great. And of course, the bank has been pushing for a long time towards implementing this. Another, I guess, area including or giving room for improvement is enforcement and collections. So yeah, we understand difficult but very relevant dimension to this. So we'll be talking about this as well. Oh, and in general, please do feel free to raise questions, to interrupt if there's something you would like to talk more about or learn more about. We will touch upon many of these issues raised here in the slides, but this in general is supposed to be a very, very open panel, open discussion. So we're very eager to hear your perspectives as well. Reform is a big issue as well. So we asked about what are the operational challenges that you're currently facing. And I think nicely in green, an evergreen in tax administration is low taxpayer compliance. I guess this is a problem that has been around for ever since taxes were invented, but I think it remains to score relatively high in country priorities. But I think this also is, in a way, underlines the relevance of this issue. The use of data and the integration of data remains a very fundamental challenge. And I think a lot of what we're going to discuss today and tomorrow, and probably also going forward, is how can tax administrations make better use of data? And how can you really leverage the wealth of data that you're currently collecting to make more informed and more evidence-based decisions? Outdated IT infrastructure remains an issue, so the bank has also frequently been involved in lending to facilitate the implementation of new IT systems, for instance. So we are very keen to hear your experiences with that and learn more about your demands. And finally, human resource constraints remain an issue. So this is something that we're not currently focusing on so much today and tomorrow, but I think going forward, this could also be one priority, depending on how much you're interested in this. And overall, yeah, let's leave it at this. Let's leave it at this and move on. So then, okay, now we've a little bit of an understanding for what the status quo is in your countries, what you're interested in. What are you interested in? Which priorities do your governments or your administrations currently set in tax administration? And related to what we talked about before, many of you are interested in implementing risk-based audit systems. And again, this will be a strong focus of my talk tomorrow. But the most important issue is the digital transformation. And I think we will have a lot of heterogeneity in the room here in terms of which services are already digitized, what are you most interested in, which important development fields do you see. So I think we can have very valuable discussions around this as well. Somebody mentioned in today's plenary as well that improving taxpayer services and leveraging artificial intelligence, digitalization to improve the quality of taxpayer services is an important issue. I personally agree. And I think taxpayer services in general can benefit very substantially from new technical developments. So in case you would like to dive deeper into this, we're also very happy to pick up on this and discuss this more. So then, as mentioned by almost everybody today, PEMNA is a lot about peer learning. So we wanted to hear from you which aspect of peer learning you're particularly interested in, or what you find most useful. And we heard, and this is also what we expected, of course, in preparing this, that learning about country best practices is something that you're really interested in. And I again would like to encourage you here to share your experiences and tell others about what has been done successfully in your country to enable others to learn. So this is really the central purpose of our meetings here, to facilitate this exchange of ideas. And we would like to bring all of you, or as many of you as possible, on board in this process. Study visits, fortunately, also seem to be very much appreciated, and we think that is great. So going forward, we could, of course, discuss the idea of bringing academics or people from other parts of the world in to share their experiences and best practices, but we would also really like to facilitate study visits within the group. So if you have any ideas in that respect or any positive experiences that you would like to share, please feel free to do so. What is it that you expect from us and from this here? What do you hope to gain from participating in these meetings? Everything scored relatively highly, which I think is nice. So new ideas or approaches for revenue administration. This is something that we also care about. So what we really would like to do is to bring you or to showcase to you what some of the current trends are and how they are being leveraged in tax administration. You're really looking forward to networking with your peers. I hope we will create a space where this will be possible to the best extent. Coordination or collaboration on specific topics. Which topics remains to be discussed. But again, I encourage all of you to suggest issues that you're interested in, and then exchange ideas and updates on regional trends and reforms. Okay, so final set of questions, 3 more questions on anticipated developments and aspirations. So we also wanted to get a bit of a sense for what do you expect to happen going forward? What are the big trends that are going to emerge over time? On the one hand, in your countries, which major reforms are planned? In some cases, nothing is planned. I guess that's fine too. But in many other countries, you indicated that e-invoicing is to be introduced, that taxpayer services are to be expanded. And I think a lot of this relates to what I said before about the potential of digitalization and artificial intelligence. And also, I think an important issue is the implementation of new audit tools. So as we talk about data sharing, data integration, this will also be a recurrent topic. So this is a question I like a lot because this is a bit like trying to foresee the future. What do you think is going to happen? What are going to be the big trends in taxpayer behavior? And I very much like your optimism towards voluntary compliance. So I think it's good that we're all hopeful that things are going to improve. Yeah, of course, we don't know. We can reconvene a few years from now and see what has happened. But I think the other big trends that emerges from this is that there is anticipated to be greater reliance on digital platforms. And I think it's fairly certain, at least from my point of view, that this is going to hold true in the future. On the improvement in voluntary compliance, I hope so. Am I as sure? Not sure. Okay, so 2 more questions. Which technology is your administration currently interested in implementing or adapting? And again, as we heard this morning, AI is really the big thing. And I suppose, and I'm very keen in hearing your perspectives on this, that there's a lot of demand or maybe even pressure domestically to adopt new AI systems. And my personal perspective on this is that some of the enthusiasm is a bit too much, a bit over-optimistic. Because my sense is that in many of these discussions, it's not really clear what exactly these AI instruments are supposed to be. I think in practice, what people understand as AI is often chatbots. But I think all of you who ever interacted with a chatbot for any service have come to the conclusion that they're not really improving your interaction compared to the old system where you waited maybe on a telephone line for 5 minutes, but then had a human being on the other end who was actually able to adjust to your problems. So I think this is an important discussion to be had because we learn, we get a lot of feedback from tax administrations suggesting that AI is going to revolutionize compliance and improve revenue collection substantially. Maybe it is, but I think at this point it's not so clear how exactly this is going to work. So we would really like to foster a debate about what are the potentials, but also potential limits of reliance on AI in tax administration. What I personally am more keen about, and I hope to some extent you're too, and according to your survey answers, it is the use of data is just something that's increasingly relevant, not only in tax administration, but I think in good governance in general. So I think it would be wonderful if in this context here, we could have a fruitful discussion around how can you really make good use of data to make your work as an administration more evidence-based, but also not only generating more revenue, but also facilitating compliance for taxpayers. And I think there's really a lot to be learned, and we'll have an excellent presentation by Chris coming up, but I'll be also briefly touching upon these issues, just showcasing to you what it is that's possible with data. And I think in most countries, not only in the region, but really globally, there's so much to be learned from, for instance, tax return data, and most governments and administration are not leveraging the full potential yet. So I'm very happy to enter a discussion with you, and all of us are, to understand better how we can use data to build better tax administrations. And finally, this is the old set of questions, so sorry. We now need to, I need to read from my screen what's going on here, because the system made a mistake in translating the survey responses here. So the last question was, looking ahead 5 years, what are the, what would be the large successes? And the green bar here is obviously not lower taxpayer compliance, but higher revenue collection. The second bar is improved taxpayer satisfaction. So I think this is really a remarkable result, that most of you think that improved taxpayer satisfaction is the key success. And I think this speaks to your empathy for taxpayers, but to your belief in the system. And I think this is a fundamental pillar of tax administration, that our work should be about making it easier for taxpayers to comply and supporting them in complying voluntarily. But I was surprised to see, to be honest, that this is the bar that scores highest, but I think, yeah, a very interesting result and one to discuss for sure. The yellow bar is success would be fully digital operations. I guess the reason why this doesn't score higher is because it might be fairly ambitious to have fully digital operations 5 years from now. But I guess most of us here share the assessment that the use of digital services is going to improve and should improve going forward. And the last bar here is stronger enforcement outcomes. So in building good tax administrations, I think many of us agree, or hopefully all of us agree, that it's also important to have robust enforcement systems. So I'm also very keen to have a discussion on how to improve the existing systems here. Okay, so that's it with our, now I lost my clicker, with our short survey here. Thank you once more for filling it in. And again, I think the purpose here was just to get a sense for what you care about, what you're interested in, what's going on in your countries, but also what you anticipate to be going on in the future. And if any of this is particularly close to your heart, please do not hesitate to bring it up and stimulate a discussion. We're very happy to talk more on any of this. So thank you very much. And with this, I'm handing over to Idrim again. Thank you.